12 years ago, I started teaching others how to trade just for the heck of it, and it ended up turning into a business. A few years ago, I started a Trading Coach podcast just for fun, and it ended up turning into another revenue stream. So here's the thing. If I can do it, and you guys know me, then anyone can. Find something you're passionate about, share your knowledge or your experiences, and start a show using Spotify. Why Spotify? Well, because they make it super easy to record, edit, schedule, and monetize all from your computer or even your phone. And best of all, it's free. So get started today at spotify.com/podcasters or download the Spotify for Podcasters app. And hey, if you need any help with podcast ideas or topics, let me know. I'll help you out. So I'm a very firm believer in rules-based trading, but I'm also a discretionary trader, which means I believe trading is not just a science, but an art. So you would think that those two kind of philosophies can conflict. Well, in today's episode of the Trading Coach podcast, I'm going to show you how you can combine the two to allow yourself to have discretion, yet still be 100% rules-based. Both at this point would give me a 1-to-1 risk reward, which is my minimum requirement is a 1-to-1. This is the dilemma. The smaller one gives me, or the closer stop loss, gives me a better risk reward. But what doesn't it give me? Gives me less safety. The larger one gives me more safety, but a worse risk reward. Less wiggle room, yeah. Or I guess more wiggle room with the larger one. That is the dilemma that we always have to face as traders. What do we value? Do we value safety, being more safe? Do we value having a better risk profile? Now, every case isn't like this, right? In the majority of the cases, I guess you can always create whatever you want, but in the majority of the cases, your stop is usually, your default stop will usually, or at least the way I trade, is usually at a good place. But it's great that we see this scenario because this is what the reality of trading looks like. Every once in a while, there's going to be a scenario where you have to make a decision. And I can tell you what, there's no wrong answer. But you need to be consistent in your approach. So the thing that would get traders in trouble isn't shooting for the shorter one, isn't shooting for the longer one. It's when this time you take the shorter risk reward, but the next time you take the bigger one. But then you go back and take the smaller one again. But then you take the bigger one when you bounce back and forth. That's when you get into trouble as a trader because there's no consistency in your approach. That's where you get to the point where you're not really following rules anymore. You're kind of just doing what you think. You can do the same thing for taking targets. Where I'm going to take targets early this time because the last trade reversed like a couple pips before. So I'm going to move them up. Oh, that last trade ran down further. So instead of taking targets from I'm supposed to, I'm going to push them back and try to get more off of this trade. That's where you get into trouble, where you start trying to make decisions for the market versus you following your rules like Jessica and taking a consistent approach. Real quick says, George replies, said, why is that? George said, what do you, no, who replied to who? Oh, what do you mean? Can you provide more info? Oh, on the why is that? I think referring to the consistency thing, like why can't I just do one thing one time and another thing another time? Yep. Because that's what most traders do. You also have to take other factors into consideration. Like what? You're not wrong, but I'm curious. Because there could be wrong answers, but there also could be right answers. What other factors should we take into consideration? If it is a technical factor, I'm all for it. Because again, like I said, in this situation, where would I prefer to have my stop loss? Smaller one. 1 ATR. 1 ATR, 1 ATR, 1 ATR. In this particular situation, due to the technicals, I have to have a 2 ATR. If not, my stop loss is in a place that I can't trust. And I don't want my stop loss in a place that I can't trust. So if we're saying we're taking the technical factors into account, I agree 100%. If we're speaking emotional factors, then I disagree. I mean, consistency is important, but for example, now you have a higher level of structure, your stop loss. Another time you may not have it. Yes, but it's still consistency. So here's where consistency plays a role. So there's consistency in how I place my stop loss, right? The lower one, right? The minimum is 1 ATR. The maximum is 2 ATR. The consistency is this. When I have a situation where my 1 ATR stop, and this is the reason I created that rule in the first place, because I did not even create that rule. It is what it is, and I learned a lesson from journaling that I need to be more flexible. So there's consistency in how I place my stop loss, right? 1 ATR minimum, 2 ATR maximum. Cannot be lower than 1 ATR ever. Cannot be more than 2 ATR ever. Cannot be that. Now, if I have a situation where my 1 ATR stop loss does not put me at a safe location, and for me a safe location is all has to do with structure, then I use the flexibility in that zone, right? As long as it's within my zone, I can use up to that 2 ATR stop to get my stop loss above structure, right? So if structure is beyond my 1 ATR stop, then I can push my stop loss up to 2 ATRs to avoid structure. Do you guys see the consistency in that? And this is the cool thing about rules, right? I'm not one of these people like, so my trading mentor was a drill sergeant, right? My trading mentor was a drill sergeant. It was trade this way, trade always this way. I don't care if you like it or don't like it. If it makes money, you do it, right? He was military or is military, because you're never really out, and very disciplined, and that was it. What I found in working with traders is that some people are really good with strict, rigid requirements. Some people aren't. So going back, and I always use the dieting reference because I think it's a really good example, because it's like healthy eating, dieting, nutrition is always a struggle for a lot of people. So this same mentor of mine, right? And again, great dude, perfect example. One day he decided that, hey, he's got to get back in shape. I think he had took up jujitsu, and he was getting a little soft around the hips and the belly areas, as most men get as we age. And he said, I got to get back in shape. Trading where you're sitting at your desk the whole time, it's not a very active lifestyle, right? So he decided, hey, I'm cutting out carbs, I'm cutting out sugar. And just did it like that. Boom, cold turkey. I remember at a conference and he's eating like this. It was like a steak salad, and you get like a bread or a dinner roll, whatever with it. And like, I'd live for the dinner roll. Like I live for when they come and they bring the hot, delicious, warm dinner roll. You give me a little butter, maybe a little cinnamon butter I can put on it. I live for it. I ask, can I have another? Before they even leave, I'm like, waiter, I'm gonna need you to bring another, because this one's gonna be gone by the time you get back. So you might just make your life easier and just bring a whole bunch of them, right? So we're mouth watering. You guys know what it is, right? So I'm sitting there, we're getting the dinner roll. We're like, okay, here we go. I'm in Kansas for the first time, so I'm living it up. And I'm like, hey, bring a couple, because we're gonna go through these, right? He's like, no, I'm only having any. I'm like, what are you allergic? Gluten allergy? Like, what's the like? I was offended. like what do you mean you're not having any? Like, how dare you? Like, if I wasn't so scared and intimidated, I would have smacked him across the face. What's wrong with you? Right? He would have caught my hand and broke it, obviously. But yeah, and he told me, hey, yesterday I decided to cut out carbs and sugar. So I'm like, cut out completely? He's like, yeah. And he just did it like that. I tried the same thing. Guess what happens? I relapse, right? I tell my wife, babe, trimming up for you. You're gonna come home to something looking nice in about a month. Please believe it. Right? And I do it for like a couple days, and then I come home and I'm passed out with like a bunch of butter in my face and bread everywhere. Like it's hard to go cold turkey. So with rules, it's very hard for many traders to, hey, like strict rule, only this, only this, only this. Because if you're someone that believes that trading is both an art and a science, and you can be just like how we spoke about technicals versus fundamentals earlier, Art versus science is another debate. Some think it's all art. Some think it's all science and mechanical. And there are some in the middle that believe it's both. And one's not right, one's not wrong. The truth is, it is both, because it's not just numbers. It's human emotions as well. But it's not just human emotions, it's also numbers. So the truth is, it is both. But you can't be wrong either way. But for people that believe in more of the artsy, like you want to have that feel for the quarterbacks out there, like, your Aaron Rodgers, your Brett Favre's, your Steve Youngs, your Patrick Mahomes, that like you need freedom to kind of like make up your own decision. You can't just stay in the pocket. You got to move a little bit. You need that flexibility. And if someone says, hey, you have to stay in the pocket. If someone says, hey, you have to only follow these strict rules with no flexibility, it's going to have a negative effect on you. Right? It's the same thing for you soccer fans out there. Messi just won the Ballon d'Or again, which he probably shouldn't have won. But you can't just put Messi in a position and be like, hey, stay here, follow these rules, right? The man needs to roam the midfield. The man needs to walk around for 20 minutes and then sprint and score and walk around for another 20 minutes. You got to give him flexibility to do what he needs is when he's at his best. So it's a tough dilemma for traders because we want to have flexibility, but we also need rules. So the cool thing about rules is that the better you become at technical analysis, you can create rules that allow you to have flexibility. And this is a perfect example of that, right? Messi, he does have the right to do it. You are 100%. I told my kids that. They're like, I yell at my kid for walking around. You got to run out there. Like, Messi's not running. I said, you know what Messi did? And I start going through all his achievements. What have you done, son? Huh? What have you done? Nothing. You're a loser. So you run until you become a winner, right? But the reason I have rules like this is because, again, my rule started with a stop loss 1 ATR. And I saw that in some circumstances, it didn't give me the protection that I needed. But I had to put it there because that was my rule. So I'm sitting there with this dilemma where it's like, man, I'm following my rule, but I know this rule is dumb because my stop loss isn't at a place that's safe. It's a tough spot to be in. But then when you understand that, hey, this is my trading plan, I can do what I want. You create a rule that allows you flexibility. So now with this rule, 1 ATR, 2 ATR zone, I still have my cage, right? I still have my cage that I can't get out of my cage. Imagine my rule, I'm a wild beast roaming and I have these cages. I can't get out of my cage. But instead of that cage being tight and I can only go in one direction, I have room to maneuver a little bit. I have room for flexibility. I have room to use that quote unquote intuition, use that experience, use that artsy side, as long as it still fits within my rules. And for many traders, that's a much better path to take because it still gives them that sense of, hey, like I have some freedom in the market, but at the same time, I'm still confined to this rule, these set of rules that are going to keep me consistent and keep me out of trouble. Because if we didn't have this rule, we could do whatever we want, mayhem would occur. If you want to learn more about my style of trading and learn some rules for how you can become consistent in the market, make sure you check out the educational resources available for you at our website, www.tier1trading.com. We have coaches, we have community, we have live supportive resources, we have training courses, everything you need to put yourself on the right track to become a consistently profitable trader. So check it out, www.tier1trading.com.